Hallo miteinander, I'm Gensokyo and this is Gensokyo Defenders. This game has been out for a few years and made available on many platforms. It's among the highest quality fan games of recent, so it's long overdue for me to feature it. The developer Neetpia has made several impressive but also complicated titles. This is their first one to be localized into English. The earlier ones had been too daunting for me to try. I have unlocked all the missions for us. We also have 20 characters to play them with. Oh, the possibilities. The protagonist would be Cherno, believe it or not, but some are more interesting. Atop all, the 3 mischievous fairies. We are picking them for Mission 18. I remember this one being very hard when I first played it. I barely made it through. I think that should be different for Sunny Milk, Luna Child and Star Sapphire though. They are usually not yet unlocked at this point. We are also skipping the cutscenes, as they are quite lengthy and it wouldn't make much sense to give you story bits from deep within the mid-game. So what kind of game is Gensokyo Defenders? There isn't much action going on right now. This town seems abandoned even. That is all because we are playing a hybrid between a twin-stick shooter and a tower defense game. We are currently in our building phase, so we have all the time in the world to set up traps, just not infinite cash to afford them all. Once we hit G on the keyboard, the enemy waves will crash in. Another reason why I chose Mission 18 is because it has the best music track in the game. Listen to those mighty drums. Gets the blood pumping. We have set down 2 flower tank turrets right next to the enemy spawn point. If those don't blast our foes within seconds, Luna, Sunny and Star will. The most special feature of our chosen characters is that they're a trio. No one else is like that, they're all going solo. The use of our primary spell card switches control to the next Fairy of Light. The 2 we are not controlling aren't inactive, they will shoot on their own. Unfortunately only at half power, but that is balancing, I guess. The next bunch of Kedama marks the end of the first combat phase. For now, it's back to building. You can demolish, or rather sell traps at 100% of the price. You are encouraged to move all of your defenses should the enemy spawn point change. On the next phase, it's here by the central river. That location gives us the chance to use a very special trap, the spring floor. All it does is push an enemy, but if they land in water, spikes or lava, it's an instant kill. If you know a level has such a hazard, the spring floor is a great item to bring along. It comes really cheap, unlike the flower tank, which is strong alright, but crazy expensive with 1200 coins per unit. Once we bring the other fairies into position, we can trigger the second phase. If you're wondering, none of the 3 fairies have any unique skills or stats about them. When I can, I still like to play as clumsy Luna most of the time, simply because I like her the best. While the spring floor is usually a worthwhile trap, I didn't expect this phase to start with sprinter fairies. They're these green girls with headbands, and they run so fast that the springs don't pop in time. They are quite weak, but nonetheless it's the type of enemy that makes it to your base easily if you don't pay enough attention. And with that, I have mentioned the base. This game wouldn't be called Gensokyo Defenders if there was nothing to defend. Our base looks like a blue portal with a yin-yang orb on it. It's in the south of this stage, we saw it at the start. The base's durability is shown at the top center. It says 27 right now and has some cinder blocks next to it. You would think the big red heart with the red bar next to it would be the base's health, but no, that is only your character's health. The one that doesn't matter nearly as much, and also the one that doesn't game over you when it runs out. Usually. Would you look at that, there's a UFO. We pick it up once it turns blue, so that it strengthens our shot power. Red ones buff your primary spell card, green ones your secondary, and grey ones improve your last word. For the 3 fairies, I like to wait until UFOs become blue, because I think their performance depends most on the raw damage of your standard shots. For the first time in this mission, we have multiple spawn points on wave number 3. This is where the 3 fairies really shine. See, mission 18 is tough because the map branches off into these 2 long stretched arms or pincers. The minimap does look a bit like a crab now that I mention it. That's cute. Anyway, it can take a good while to get from one end to the other, even if you save time by clever usage of the teleporters. That's when it becomes a huge advantage to have 3 characters at the same time, which you can just leave at key points. We have Star guarding the river, whereas Luna and Sunny are up north. I do think the fairy trio is among the strongest of this game, top tier for sure. That's perfectly okay too, as they are somewhat the second lead of the plot, right after Cherno, who they are in rivalry with. There are 3 missions for which you are forced to play as them. That would be no fun at all if they sucked, like Alice for example. She's also playable and just about the worst in my experience, which is a little painful to me. I actually really like Alice. It's a shame. The storm of bullets you just saw is the fairy trio's last word, a special attack. The interesting thing about it is that not just your active fairy will use it, but the other 2 as well, even if they're at the opposite corner of the map. Alright, that's another phase over with. The 4th one is when this level gets nasty. Even though we're making it through these waves fine, know that this game has nothing resembling a checkpoint system. A mission is only truly in the bag when it ends, and I have had many last-minute defeats in my time with Gensokyo Defenders. That will mean about 10 to 15 minutes to get back to where you were. Quite unforgiving, for today's standards. Not compared to NES Battletoads or anything with a weekend rental mentality. Anyway, about those last word attacks, the only thing that differentiates them from your spell cards is that they use a different type of ammunition. It's that globe on the lower right. It fills from defeating enemies. Spell cards, on the other hand, drain the blue bar next to the diamond on the top left, which just regenerates over time. Generally, last words should be seen as something scarce, a desperation attack if you want, whereas spell cards you can indulge in much more. Oh, those spearmen and archer fairies are out to get us. They're arriving in much greater numbers now. Many enemies fight back once they see you, others, like the Kedama, only concentrate on rushing to your base. You've got to learn how each enemy type is going to act. I've hinted before that your character as a unit is more expendable than your base. That is mostly true. If you do lose all of your hit points though, it'll take several seconds to respawn, and on top you lose 5 points of your base. So you should only allow yourself to be so reckless. We are indeed not doing so hot. The reason why we've lost so much life is because all 3 fairies are vulnerable and share the same health pool. Worse, if they're not active, they stand still, never bothering to dodge any enemy attacks. If you don't switch fast when one is outnumbered, you're going to have a terrible time. I do like playing as the three fairies of light. They're really strong, but managing them should never be taken lightly. For a handful of missions, I'd even say they are not the ideal choice. This one is definitely fine though. Alright, it's the final wave. Some words about the other traps we can set. Yin Yang marks paralyze enemies, and for a pretty long time too. They are among my favorites, very low on cost for how effective they are. Let's have one right next to the base, just in case something makes it that far. We also have funky fungi. Yes, that's genuinely what they're called. Those suspicious shrooms multiply damage on enemies and sometimes cause other status effects like confusion. It's one of my typical choices and best in combination with other traps. The great thing about making it so far into a mission is that we have all of these defenses up because we made a lot of gold from all the kills so far. The not so great thing is that this game takes that into account and really starts going ham then. So many archers and, even worse, the Kedama riders. Those are a special breed. They're practically uninterested in the base, but more so in you. Dedicated player hunters, you could say. There's one ability of the three fairies I rarely use, their secondary spell card. That one teleports the other two fairies next to you and grants each a damage buff. Of course, that would destroy my careful setup of each team member, so I'm not a huge fan. Still, it can be helpful in a few situations. Oh no, another rider, and it stabbed Sunny out of existence. If that wasn't enough, we have a mini-boss incoming, the ghostly gardener Yomu. You wouldn't want her to get too close because of, well, that. Star died off screen in the meantime, so that's a fresh respawn for us. Almost every mission ends with an encounter with another Touhou. They're usually not too bad. In fact, that oh so useless secondary spell card really steamrolled Yomu. I said it could be good in a few situations. Still, if you're on your last leg, these mini-bosses can tip the scales. I've lost in that manner before. 3-star rating, the best you can have. Those stars are also used as a resource to level yourself up in a variety of ways. You can improve a number of passives like your own hit points or the base's durability. You could also strengthen individual traps like those flowery tanks. The coolest thing about the upgrade system is that you can always remove points and put them somewhere else where it's more sensible. Next up, I want to show you how Marissa plays, and Mission 20 should be ideal for that. Mission 20 is a very special one, really unlike any other. At the top, it says that there is only one single phase. How peculiar. The idea is that this is a fight against a super boss. Yomu was nothing compared to them. The one we must face is Gensokyo's very own mobile suit, Hisotensoku. And oh boy, his health bar is barely even moving. No, this won't be a quick and easy victory. But I still believe Marissa will get it done sooner than anyone, as her Danmaku is all about power. The ordinary magician isn't moving as fast as the three fairies, and obviously she is less flexible, as she is on her own. How Marissa really shines is with her secondary spell card. It's these grenades we're throwing at Hisotensoku. They're actually the explosive blue potions you may know from the fighting games. Purely unupgraded, they deal 140 points of damage in a considerable blast radius. 140 is a big number for the dimensions of this game. You'll hardly find anything more destructive. No, not even the Master Spark, which would be Marissa's primary spell card. Did I say Master Spark? It should have been Narrow Spark. The real Master Spark is the last word, basically a stronger and wider version of the primary spell card. While those abilities are pretty serviceable, the real winner is still the grenade. I just love throwing it whenever I can. When I first arrived at this mission, I expected it to be the final battle. It is not. The grandeur of a super boss had me fooled, as did the novelty of having NPCs as helpers. Aya covers the west side. She is sort of a mentor to Cirno in the plot. The center is aided by another Marissa, an imposter I guess. It is not assumed that you play as her for this one. The east is guarded by Alice, who I feel always does a terrible job. I already told you she was garbage tier. At least we don't have to play as her. We had set down several additional tanks. They should help out loads. That's another special thing about this mission. You have no preparation phases. You must set your traps in real time once you have enough cash. Switching out of attack mode for this feels like multitasking. It makes me scatterbrained, like I'm trying to do too much at once. But honestly, when you have a moment to breathe, it's well worth spending gold for some extra defenses. It'll help you in the long run. While we're at it, I have another vital tip for this mission. Take it slow and don't get greedy. You'll have the urge to deal as much damage as possible to Hiso Tensoku. Only go after him though when there are no enemies even close to your base. If you stay patient, chances to hit the giant robot will come to you. It's so much more important to not let any enemies slip through. We've really struggled there with those archers for no good reason. Should have just thrown grenades. Since that secondary spell card is so amazing, I like to collect mainly green UFOs for Marissa. Every single one you pick up raises grenade damage by 28 points. On that note, there is a Steam achievement awarded when you deal 350 points of damage on a single enemy. That will seem astronomical. I was stumped on how to get that for the longest time. If it sounds impossible to you as well, what I did was I got like 3 or 4 green UFOs and then aimed a grenade at a foe I had afflicted with funky fungi earlier. Combining all of that did the trick. I cannot imagine how else you would do it. Out of the blue, we lost 7 hit points of our base. We weren't around to witness anything, but from the minimap, what I believe happened was that a large Kedama was killed by one of our silly NPC helpers. It split into 7 smaller Kedama at the very last second. Never make that mistake in a similar situation. Just let the big one walk into your base deliberately. And so much for Hiso Tensoku. The flower tanks and grenades did a number on that death machine. It was actually just a cheap balloon that Seija whacked with the Miracle Mallet. Despite that major accident at the end, we qualified for another 3-star rating. A good achievement to end our video on, I think. I would have shown you the equally overpowered Moko next, but I feel that would have made the video longer than welcome. I really enjoyed my time with Gensokyo Defenders so far, and I highly recommend it. I'm Gensokyo, bis bald!